Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. I, of course, am your host, Jordan Millbrook. Lots going on behind me today here at Wayside Comics. On this episode, we're going to be speaking with Chetan Patel, the creator of the independent comic TikTok Tom. Of course, there's going to be an Omar Recommends while I'm here at Wayside Comics in Newmarket. So many people walk up and down Main Street, I get so distracted. This is the beginning of the show, folks. I don't want to get distracted immediately. Oh, I just made eye contact with that guy. Oh my goodness. I think he wants to fight. No, he doesn't want to fight. He nodded. We're all good. This is the opening theme song. Welcome back to By the Wayside. Checking my mic because that's what I do, especially when the camera's rolling. And I didn't think ahead to look at it and then say, welcome to By the Wayside. I wanted to do it looking down. It's Christmas time. It's my favorite time of year. I think anyone can attest to it. I think in every single episode of By the Wayside, I mentioned something about Christmas. Pretty sure I do. Let me take a quick look. Yes. Christmas time. Christmas time. Oh, I have this. I got this guy. Let's do that. This is to show that this is a Christmas episode. This is Frosty the Snowman. I always wanted to ask people what their favorite Christmas gift is, or favorite holiday gift, or what have you. And the one that pops to my mind is back in the 90s. There's a lot of 90s chat today, actually. And back in the 90s, my stepfather bought me a Super Nintendo. Kind of just like, oh, here's a Super Nintendo with Mario All-Stars. And I played Mario All-Stars for the longest period of time until I think I got don't worry about me, we're just recording the show. Hey, Omar's right here. Omar, what's your favorite Super Nintendo game?
Super Nintendo game?
Yes, Super Nintendo game.
Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
That's a Super Nintendo game?
Super Nintendo game. Love that game.
Okay, thank you. All right, a little behind the scenes with Omar Sayer, owner, purveyor, and operator of Wayside Comics, which is where we do the show By the Wayside here. So, Zombies Ate My Neighbors? I think he made that up. I've always wanted to travel for Christmas. But one of the biggest concerns was that I wasn't sure that Santa would be able to find me. I think I'm going to ask a little later on if Santa would find me if I traveled throughout the world. I don't know. What do you think? Send me an email. Email comes across here. And let me know if you think Santa would find you. Or follow me on DM, direct message, distinct message me on Instagram and let me know if you think Santa would find you if you traveled during Christmas. I think Hawaii would be the place, by the way. I know I'm Canadian and snow is a big deal, but when was the last time it snowed here in Ontario for Christmas? Okay, let me be more specific. I'm in southern central Ontario, like in the Golden Horseshoe of Ontario. So sometimes it snows, sometimes it doesn't, but I can't recall a time the last time it snowed in Ontario during Christmas or on Christmas Day. To me, my weather people. Stick around, we got a really awesome episode today on By the Wayside. Don't go anywhere because we're going to have Frosty play us off. And here we go. I turned it off. All right. Catch you in a second. Okay, you ready?
Go for it.
All right. Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. As I had said off the top of the episode, of course, we have with us the amazing creator of the comic book or comic? How would you describe it? Comic
book, let's say that.
Comic book? Okay.
Yeah, we're old school.
I like that. Chetan Patel is with me today. Like I just said, the creator of TikTok Tom. Thank you again, Chetan, for coming in today and speaking with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, no problem. I was gonna say the reason. It sounds never start a conversation with the reason I invited you. That sounds so dumb. And I do this professionally. Chetan, You and I had met back in October, and you told me the story about TikTok Tom. And one of the things I found most intriguing about it is that you've been doing it for so many years.
So many years.
But you've been making independent comics since the early 90s, TikTok Tom since the early 90s. And it's obvious you have a very personal connection to this creative endeavor. But the 90s is not a time for independent creativity. During those early days, what was the response from the people sort of in your orbit? Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it kind of like, "Bleh"?
It was positive. Honestly, it was positive. Before the market crashed, we had really good response, and independent comics were on the boom at that time.
Yeah,
There's a lot of forget about the black and white boom and all that stuff that produced a lot of a lot of crap, honestly. But but they produced a lot of good things, and at that time the market was booming, and I did see a lot of independent books. Then when the market crashed, it killed a lot of people. Put a lot of small creators like myself and stuff out of the comic industry for a couple of years. Then we came back again, but overall, through the public and everything, it was going very well. And at that time in the 90s, Dave Sim was doing the Spirits of Independence convention
oh,
to
yeah,
boom the independent comic creators. And that was great until the market crashed.
yeah. So in the 90s, like even publishing independent work like on your own, like from your home, and small independent printers who make comic books or books or anything creative like that is a relatively new thing. In the 90s, especially the early
Oh,
90s, making a 8.5 by 11 or whatever size comic books are. I know 8.5, 11 is paper, but making a standard size comic book, unless you knew someone who worked at a large printing press or you were, I guess, for lack of a better term, wealthy, you couldn't make comic books like that. When you were making your comic book TikTok Tom back in the early 90s, what were you doing? How did you get it out there?
well, first, the original versions were, like you say, 8.5 by 11 comics, photocopied, folded, stapled, stapled, stitch.
Oh.
Some of it, most of it was done by hand. Then later on, we found some printers that had automated photocopiers that would do all of it.
Oh,
In,
the future already existed in the past.
but it wasn't great. But then one of the printers, I remember, it's in Toronto. We went there, and the guy goes, "You know what? To save me time, why don't you guys just use the hand stapler in the back? Just come in one day, I'll photocopy everything. You guys fold it and staple it. 3, 4 of us would go in the back, staple it and everything. Then later on, and what you said is true. Printing our full size book at that time in the 90s, you didn't have print on demand.
Yeah.
So our minimum print runs were anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 per issue.
Whoa.
Yeah. So our first 3 books,
Do you still
first,
have copies of them?
I have boxes of the third one, lots of them. Reason being is that's when the market crashed.
Yeah.
And the first one we sold a lot, which was surprising. And second, we sold enough. Then as the market was crashing, we had to do a minimum print run of 3,000 copies.
Yeah.
And the problem with using at that time Diamond and some of the other distributors were that you had to distribute the book, solicit the book 3 months in advance. Then you had to
Yeah.
send it out to the printer also to get it in time. And we had our issue 4 ready. We were about to send it to the printer, and that's when the market crashed. And what I would say 90% of the distributors went under.
Oh, geez.
And
It's
we
bad
almost
time.
got screwed on that because we would have been stuck with thousands of copies.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that technology and the world of creative marketing and independent, the word I'm looking for, sort of like the pushing forward independent creators has boomed, in the last like 10
Oh,
years.
definitely.
So you can just do what you want when you want because of how
That's it.
easy print on demand is these days specifically. So in the 90s, if you had your photocopy comic book of TikTok Tom and you handed it to someone, it was a positive experience because how often does someone get to see a friend or a family member of theirs you get to read what they've done?
Oh, rarely, rarely, because at that time, self-publishing, people did self-publishing, but it was expensive
Yeah.
and not anyone would do it. not too many people would do it, and that's why when I used to go to comic shops or even CD shops at that time,
CD
they,
CD shops.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm showing my age now. So when you go there, you'd see in the corner of it would have comics or photocopied zines and stuff, and it was great because,
yeah,
and like you said, giving it to your friends or anyone else, the first response was, "Did you do this?
yeah.
Yeah, and how did you print it?"
It's
You
a
know,
it's a
and
fun
yeah,
culture of photocopied zines because you would have yours, and then that would open someone else's eyes to be like, oh, if Chetan, oh Chetan, sorry I pronounced your name wrong. If Chetan can make this at home, I'm seeing all these other books everywhere else. I wonder what the quality of these are. So it becomes that down the line, someone's picking it up, and then that becomes the zine boom. It becomes a big deal with
and I'm the
people.
perfect example of that
Yeah,
because I remember I went to Ontario College of Art and Design, and a bunch of us would go to stores and stuff, and we'd see books like that, and it's like, hey, let's do this,
yeah,
and it sparks ideas. Going, you know what? Before that, all you're thinking is professional comics, and either you get into the mainstream companies or independent, or you spend a lot of money printing your own book.
yeah.
Now the what do you call it? The door open to say, you know what, I could do my own comics.
Yep. And I think that's one of the best things that whoever started printing their comic books or their magazines like that, like photocopying them, it did for the independent community. It gave someone an alternative way to have their work shown to a larger audience.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. So we said TikTok Tom an awful lot at the beginning of this segment. What is TikTok Tom?
TikTok Tom was originally a character, wore goggles, who went around blowing things up. It was a simple, it was a 20-year-old art college, anti, society, what do you call it, government type of approach thing. And, it was just like a guy who was blowing up. Then as time went along, the character developed into we introduced time travel, parallel universes, everything else, and everything wacky and crazy.
So TikTok Tom, obviously a character that you created, and now after what? So I said early '90s. I'm 44. 35 years ago. You've
Yeah.
had this character
Oh,
35 years. Been
oh,
working with this character for
at
35 years.
least, yes.
That's a long time to really love something.
You have to love comics.
I guess that's true. And over 35 years, you grow and you take what you learn in your life and you apply it to TikTok Tom, and you see the character grow, not just on the page, but in society, in your orbit, your group of friends, your group of people, the devoted readers and fans of TikTok Tom. But it takes a lot of love for a character to love it that long. What is it that you do to continue to love that character? Or like what do you use to keep it fresh?
I'll be honest with you. There were a few years where I put it aside just to, I had kids, got married, and had kids and everything. Put it aside for a bit. Came back to with a fresh new mind, and it's one of those things where you start off on one idea and it starts blooming into more and more ideas. And that's one tip I will give to new creators and anything is start something and keep at it. You'll
Yeah.
come up with hundreds of ideas.
I One of the best pieces of advice I'd ever gotten, and I try to say it to as many people as I can, is use your own characters. Someone wants to write a Batman story. Well, create your own Batman. Just the other week when I was here at Wayside Comics in Newmarket, I was talking about how much I wanted to make a Wildcats movie. And someone said, well, why don't you just make your own Wildcats? Like, just create your own Wildcats, a different
Yeah.
group of Wildcats. And then I did that back in the '90s, just like you did.
Yeah.
And I photocopied comics just like you did. That's why I find your adventure from the '90s, from extreme underground independent comic making with TikTok Tom to where it is today with actual, pieces of paper that you can hold in your hand. You can come to events like here at Wayside Comics. They have I say they, it's Omar. They have the creator series where independent creators can come in and they can, I'm going to say hawk their wares, but I know that
Yes.
is not the correct term. But where they can share their experiences, where they can talk to people that might not get the opportunity to see these comic books. That's the beauty of having Wayside Comics that is very much into promoting the independent
Oh, yes.
creator.
Yes.
And if we're looking back at even the guests that have been here on By the Wayside and future guests and people that are just walking down the street here in Main Street who might have an idea sparked in their head, the idea that from the it's just the idea that in the '90s when you took your idea you went full underground, and you are now here today, 30 something. Math in me is not good. 30 something years later is an incredible feat. You're still sticking with it, and you're still loving absolutely every second of it.
I do. I do. It's, you know what, it's then your ideas in what you just said is great. It's just, keep at it, stick to it and everything. And that's what I've been doing. And, you know, yeah, I could do my own Batman story or Superman story, but like you said, you know what? I enjoy my characters. And
Yeah,
if you read my book, we have dozens of interesting characters. None of them are superheroes. Most of our characters are everyday,
of course.
characters, but still we make them interesting. Come on, we put krakens in it, zombies in the stories, everything. And you know what? It's honestly, the bottom line is being creative
Yes.
and enjoying it.
Yes.
That's the two main things I would say that drives me.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. You have to like what you're doing, or else it's just kind of it's a chore,
Oh,
right?
it's a chore,
Yeah.
and you know what? Why do it then?
Yep, I agree. And sometimes people will take something and they'll want to make it for others, but it's also important to remember that you want to make something for yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be personal, but the idea that you're making something because you want to draw TikTok Tom doing something cool, just sit there and write and draw TikTok Tom doing something cool.
That's a perfect example because my one of my colleagues who works on the book, Tom Yo, we've been working on it for years and years now. He's been part of the 30 some years group, and sometimes we'll write stories and draw stories, and the first thing we would say, well, other people understand it, and we're going, no, just keep doing it,
As long as you like it, if I want to write a story about a robot zombie that's powered by a lion, I'm gonna write it
You're
because
gonna
that's
write it.
super
Yes,
awesome.
that's it. That's it.
Don't steal my ideas.
But you know what? But that's the thing. You know what? Going back to the 90s to now, you have the, what do you call it? Opportunity to write your own stories the way you want, draw it the way you want. Who cares what other people think? You
Yeah.
know what? Just draw it, and you know what? You'll get an audience.
And what comes with that audience, not just fandom and people that absolutely love your work, they'll find others that feel the exact same way.
That's it. Yes.
And they might find a creator in themselves and then find another creator that is like, hey, I have this really cool idea. And then all of like it's that world comes together and
Oh,
you
that's
you
it. Yes.
create a place like Wayside Comics.
And
Come to
that
Wayside Comics. There's tons of people like that.
and that's the thing with the Wayside Creator Con, where, as a creator, I didn't know some of those creators lived in this area
Yep.
or within the Toronto area. And you walk around, talk to them, and say, hey, you do this, you do that. And it was a great way to, meet new people, see what they do. And, nowadays at this age, there's not, I don't get to go to comic shops as much as before and
Of
stuff
course.
or anything. And a lot of smaller shops are gone now. So now, if, with you guys, it was perfect experience. You get to see a lot of new creative books.
Yep. And that's the beauty of having someone like Omar Sayer, who runs Wayside Comics, who absolutely loves supporting independent creators. He's a very important part of the community of people, like I just said. I'm just going to repeat myself, but how important he is, and he wants people to know about the creators. He wants creators to meet creators. I don't want to speak for him. Maybe when he's on the show, I'll double check with him and how he feels about my description of Omar. But Chetan, thank you very much for taking
No
the time
problem.
and coming in today. Thank you for telling me about your journey. Thank you for explaining to me more about what TikTok Tom is. And stick around because we have a little bit more on this episode of By the Wayside. So don't go anywhere. Oh, welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. And
By
when
the
there's no
wayside.
Omar's here. Omar, do you have something to recommend?
Of course I do. Is this segment called Omar Recommends?
So I have a hat because
Oh.
it's a Christmas theme. And guess what?
Where'd you pull that hat out of?
I'm not telling you where I got the hat from. It's Christmas. Christmas, as my mom would say, Christmas is a time for secrets.
This is how the cool elves wear it. Just like side.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, you got to see the balls.
It's all
This
about
is
it.
on TV, folks. Okay. Omar, you always come on the show. You always recommend something. That's why this segment is specifically called Omar Recommends. What do you have to recommend for us today?
Well, today I wanted to choose something pseudo Christmassy. I mean, you brought up the hat and everything. So,
Yeah.
what I have for you today is, I think, a seminal comic book, something that's extraordinarily well regarded, but just essential reading, really. So, what I brought for you today is Daredevil Born Again by Frank Miller and Dave Mazzucchelli. So this takes place around Christmas time, so we're on brand. We're
Fair
on
enough.
theme.
Fair
Boom.
enough.
What makes this book so good is this combination of the writing and the art. So this book is about the complete destruction mentally of a superhero and how they pick up the pieces and get back to a place where they can be themselves. So you get to see the this brutal destruction of the character of Matt Murdock, who is Daredevil, as I know, spoiler alert. But the crux of the story is the Kingpin finds out who Daredevil is through one of his friends and systematically destroys his life. And amidst all that, as he like blows up his law office and goes all these big things, he's trying to pick up the pieces, and he doesn't really know. The situation is dire. He doesn't really know who he or what he is at the moment, and horrible things are happening, and he has to kind of steel himself and find out again what it means to be a hero, and amidst all the other heroes that exist in this universe, and what his place is. I think is a big thing, and there's a lot of themes with like Catholicism and hope and your faith, things like that. But it's just seminal reading. It's the artwork is gorgeous. It's very neo noir.
Yeah.
The way Dave Mazzucchelli presents this book and Frank Miller's words in this book in particular are just standout. There's some amazing lines in this book that just to this day will stick in my head, and I think I will forever.
Can you quote it right now? I'm gonna put you
Um,
on the spot. Can you quote a line from it right now?
One of my favorites is when it's near the end of the book, but essentially Matt Murdock is watching the Avengers come in to help with the situation he's dealing with, and he's talking about Captain America, and he in one of the lines is he has the kind of voice that could command a god, and does, as he's like commanding Thor to do something,
That's cool.
and it's just such a cool line.
Yeah,
It's
that
such
is
a
very
small
cool.
but powerful line that kind of sums up Captain America in like a sentence,
Yeah, I
which
agree.
is incredible. But yeah, just like really understated moments here. Like I said, there's just so many like little bits, and you can read this again and again and again and keep finding so much more. Like you can really dive into the art and get lost in this book, and I highly, highly recommend it. Seminal reading.
Awesome.
One of my top 10.
Is Daredevil one of your favorite characters?
He is one of my favorite characters. Now, I always go back and forth with people. Born Again isn't actually my favorite Daredevil story. It's Man Without Fear, which I think is the greatest origin story ever written, also by Frank Miller. But they're
Convenient.
pretty neck and neck, honestly.
Well, Frank
This
Miller
is amazing.
is
And we have this beautiful giant gallery edition, so you can see the artwork as big as you'd like.
it's like watching it on a big screen
Yeah.
TV.
That's right. But one of the quotes, and it's on the back of the book.
Oh,
I
cheater.
think it does sum it up. But like
Okay.
this is kind of the log line. It's the Kingpin wants to show Matt Murdock that a man without hope is a man without fear,
Whoa.
and that's kind of what the kind of sums it up a little bit.
So how do you scare a man without fear?
Do you want me to quote Colin Farrell in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie?
Yep.
By putting the fear in him.
Excellent.
There you go. Yeah.
Omar, thanks again for coming in and recommending a comic book here in your shop, Wayside Comics in Newmarket, Ontario, which is where we do every episode of By the Wayside, with the exception of one segment all the way back at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. You, Jordan, you're welcome, and you guys are welcome, because you're welcome. Seriously, it's fantastic.
I think I read that a couple years ago. Any hoozle. Your line.
Oh, we'll catch you by the wayside.
Okay.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. All the things. I wish you nothing but the best. Do you need my mic? Because it's still hot.
Oh, yeah. Can I have your mic? I feel like so much happening all at once.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
He's quoting movies that he thinks are Christmas movies.
Have you ever seen The Ref? Don't tell me it's not Christmas.
That's Chaz Palminteri, correct? The ref? Isn't the person he ties up Chaz Palminteri? Looks like we're going to pull out IMDb. And anyway, I think it's Chaz Palminteri. Emilio Estevez? I can't remember. Thank you very much to all of my guests here on By the Wayside. And what you threw me off with this whole ref thing now. I'm really confused. Follow me on Instagram. Follow the website. To all of my beautiful TV viewers, thanks again for joining me on this journey.
The canceled Kevin Spacey.
It was Kevin Spacey. It was Kevin Spacey. I was so off. It's unbelievable. I have two mics here for some reason. Lots happening. Thank you again for joining me. I said that already. Christmas time. I said that already. I talked about Christmas. I talked about Chetan, Patel. TikTok Tom. Omar recommends. Follow all of the socials that's happening here. I'm Jordan Middlebrook. I don't think I said that enough today. Jordan Middlebrook is my name. Jordan Middlebrook, Jordan Middlebrook, Jordan Middlebrook. I didn't get a hot chocolate. I got to find Omar, get my hot chocolate. I will catch you by the wayside.